Hello and welcome to another D&D Stories. I am your host, TheWriter, and this is the show where we sit here and I regale you with all the tabletop stories and games of remember the time when something awesome happened. So we return once more to the campaign of Wicked Master and Spoony the Bard and Friends. So, gosh, last time we recovered the third and fourth piece of the Archdemon that Edmond the Alchemist and Lieutenant Black were using to concoct the Black Taint to turn people into monsters. So one piece remains, and we're 99% sure it's in Edmond's possession. And with Lieutenant Black out of the way, we've only got one target before this gets wrapped up with a nice, neat bow. So strap in, everybody. We're about to hit the stratosphere. So we got a bunch of money for getting the third and fourth pieces and, storyline XPs and, these people are still alive and these people got saved and these people are dead, so you get XPs for that. Our DM was very generous to make sure we got into the higher levels as far as this campaign, when I think we topped out at like 14 or 15, really high. I don't think I've ever played a D&D game that reached quite that high after that. Because the stronger D&D characters get, the more outrageous stuff they can just pull out of their pockets to trump anything you throw their way. But, yeah, we got to 14, 15, 16, somewhere in that neighborhood, and we were feeling pretty badass, and, Edmond was all that stood between us and a happy ending. So, again, being proactive, we decided to start asking around. And Edmond, again, somebody that's not easy to find. He could be in any number of 20 different places, though he frequented, certain whorehouses, certain drug dens, certain inns on the slummy side of town. He was a hard man to find. But by then, he had learned that we were stopping him, that Lieutenant Black was dead, that the four other pieces of the Archdemon had been collected and were out of his reach and were beyond the reach of any of the factions that he controlled. The side alleys stabbing people and the prostitutes, the people that would be his eyes and ears all over town. So all the information about us was flowing in towards Edmond, and he had since started sending people after us. So we got jumped a little more often by increasingly powerful dwarven rogues with like levels in assassin. We got shot at from rooftops, and just different little battles started popping up as we were making our way through town, because sometimes you don't want to go where everybody knows your name, and especially if they're all out for your heads. And eventually we did turn over a dead dwarven rogue, and we found wanted posters. Now, Spoony's face is all over posters all over town anyway, but now there were posters of all 6 of our party members, and there was a price of like 10 grand, 10,000 gold on each of our heads. So, if a lucky wild mage pops off a fireball and we all die, that's 60 grand richer for him. So now half the damn city is out to get us, and it's like, we've got to stop Edmond or catch him, or the bodies are going to start piling up and we might be among them. So we go to Jameson and we say, Jameson, this is coming to an end. You've got to start digging your hole now, or whatever your plan happens to be to get rid of these demon parts that are in the vault. And he goes, yeah, I've already got a site picked out, and I've got slabs of stone ready. I've got the cement mixers are already turning, and I've got a workman's crew that don't know what they're burying. I told them it was some mediocre cursed object, and we're getting rid of it because the local paladins couldn't destroy it. I fed them a false story. They don't know what they're going to be handling. And the vault that we've been putting all the pieces into is modular, so we can take it apart, and there are like 5 cells for us to transport. So each one of us can carry one, and have an odd man out, probably Dylan, because he's a paladin and he can do 70 damage a swing of a sword nowadays against anything that's evil. So leave Dylan to guard us while we're moving the 5 pieces once we get them. So it's like we're undoing all the chains and all the padlocks and stuff, getting ready to move all the pieces, because as soon as we get the 5th one, we have to race to the hole, bury it, and then hope nobody starts asking questions or anything, and like put a fountain over it, put a children's playground over it, though that would make for a campaign later on. This playground was built on a vault containing the pieces of a demon. That'd be amazing. Like 20 years later, we come back. But, yeah, so Jameson is ready. He's chomping at the bit for us to get the last piece, put it in the vault, and then bury it to the center of the freaking earth to get rid of this madness that's plaguing the city. So we go, okay, how are we going to get a hold of Edmond? And it's like, well, we've got to capture somebody alive, somebody important, otherwise it's not going to matter. It's like Lieutenant Black didn't know where he was. And so we, through like a convoluted set of different people, rogues, whores, pimps, we basically started slapping people around because we had run out of options. There were too many people after us and not enough cops on the corners to protect us. So we just started like pimp slapping rogues in alleyways. Where is he? Where are the other drugs going? Yeah. Where does your profits go? Where is Edmond? Even when they start talking, just keep slapping them. And finally, we learn that Edmond has like a riverside house. The rivers that go through the city. He has a almost like an underground pool where except instead of a pool, it's a house. It's basically like the ground is the roof, and he's got a couple of chimneys, so people usually walk by them because they look like trash cans or something like that. And they go, yeah, it's kind of brilliant because he's doing all this different alchemy stuff, and anytime he messes up, he can just throw it in the river, and the river takes it away. And we're like, oh, God, any like bad chemical reactions that he's doing, any bad alchemy that he messes up on that he doesn't like, is going to affect the people downstream or kill all the plant life, or maybe there's like deer and other animals down there that are suddenly contracted the black taint because they drank the water and now they're giant Cthulhu monsters. It's like, we've got to worry about that later. We got a bead on the guy, at least on like his alchemy table, at least like his laboratory. He obviously sleeps in all different places and frequents different whorehouses and collects money from drug dens, etc., changes chariots all the times. His schedule is not something we're able to figure out, but now we know where all of his toys are, so we're going to try and get the jump on the guy. And we do. We find this place, and again, it's level with the river, and it's next to a bridge, so we're basically like on the bridge, and we can jump off onto his roof, and we find the secret entrance, and we're like, okay, do we wait for him? Do we, what do we do with this as far as that? And it kind of got to the point, and I know this feels anticlimactic, but it kind of got to the point where it didn't really matter who or what Edmond was. Like, he's just a guy. I think it was NCIS or CSI or something like that. They used a whole season to track down this super criminal who was like a cannibal or something, and they're like, who is the guy? Who's the grave digger or whatever his name was? And they find him, and they just shoot him, I think, or they did something. They arrested him with no hullabaloo, and it's like, well, who was he? Nobody. He was just a guy, a really messed up guy that liked to eat people and bury people alive and demand money from their loved ones. Edmond was kind of the same thing. He was a brilliant alchemist, and he was obviously a great economist, and he had high ranks in and intimidate and a lot of money, but he wasn't like a super-powered wizard. He wasn't a world-destroying anti-paladin or anything. He was a brilliant scientist. You know, he was nobody. He may as well have been you know, like I used to say, a random NPC with, 10 health and no armor. Because as soon as we found Edmond, he was just like this scrawny guy with bags under his eyes and blonde, greasy hair, just kind of leaned over his alchemy table. Is like, okay, do we go talk to him? Do we shoot him in the back? And Cassandra's like, shoot him in the back. And we go, Edmund's it. If that's him, and, based on the information we got, and you're like, yeah, that's him. There are no guards in here. He doesn't trust anybody with, all around all of his alchemy stuff, his secret formulas and books and magic circles and all, he's probably got liquid gold boiling somewhere for whatever he's working on, things like that. He doesn't trust anybody to enter his actual alchemy table area, and we got the jump on him, and he went down nothing, I expected him to be like, oh, you shoot him in the back, and he pumps himself full of black taint in one final big boss battle. And at the end of the day, no. And you might say, oh, that's awful. That's not good gameplay. And it's like, well, what did you expect? Did you expect, like, a super-powered wizard? Did you expect an anti-paladin that wanted to destroy the world, or somebody who's half dragon, or a dragon in disguise for some? No. This guy concerned himself with the slums of a really racist and half-destroyed city, and spent all of his time creating basically a Cthulhu plague. He himself was not very powerful. It was his work and all the people around him. They were his armor and body and shield. And Edmund himself was a brain. Or if you've ever seen, what was it, Law-Abiding Citizen, that Gerard Butler movie, spies are a dime a dozen. I'm a spy. Edmund's a brain. And if, Edmund wants you dead, you're gonna be dead. So Edmund was the brain. But once we got to him, he went down like a stack of cards. So we assassinated Edmond, and we destroyed his alchemy stuff, and most of it went into the river, which was not a good idea, but that was the quote-unquote best thing to do. And Dylan, the paladin, set fire to all of his alchemy books, and Cassandra stirred the ashes. We made sure the building was underground to begin with, so we basically collapsed the whole thing in on itself, and once the chemicals were all gone, watched it burn. So we didn't get anything for that boss fight other than XP. We didn't get any. He wasn't wearing a magic robe. He didn't have a cloak of invisibility. He didn't have, a mage eye floating around his head to make sure he couldn't get sneak attacked. He was a chemist, a very smart, very well-funded guy, but still just a chemist. So we shot him in the back, and that was it. And sure enough, in one of the tiny, tiny bottles, hidden back behind all the other stuff, just with a cork in it, he left it out in the open so people wouldn't find it, was a small glass bottle with the demon's claw in it. And, Neil and Dylan find it, and they're like, this is it. This is the last piece. We did it. And we're like, yeah, all right, so Lieutenant Black, dead. Edmund, dead. All of his work gone and burned, so nobody else picks up his work. The black taint will, in all eventuality, peter out, because once those drugs are smoked or used or whatever, there's no more. So there may be a handful more monsters, but then there will be no more, because the black taint is not being concocted anymore. It's like, we've stopped the problem at the source. We've cut the head off the serpent. We've won. This is it. And so we give the demon's tooth to Dylan, our paladin, and we go back to the tower with Mr. Jameson. We're like, Mr. Jameson, we got it. And we hold up this tiny, insignificant bottle. It's like, this is the demon's claw. That's the fifth piece. That's it. Yeah. And we put it in the in the vault, and the modular pieces of the vault come apart, and we're like, okay, and we each have like a piece under our arms, and Jameson comes with us to the burial site, basically, and he's got like this cylinder, this big canister that we're going to put each of the parts into, and like lock them in place, and screw the screws in, and put Taoist marks over them, and then pour wax over the whole thing and stamp it with holy symbols, and put chains around it and all that good stuff. Do not open demon parts inside and stuff like that. And we pull the lid over it, and we slam it down, and we screw it into place. It takes all of us because it's a big, like thick metal plate. And Jameson leans down over it with like his etching tool, and he's like, all right, I'm going to put the seal on it, and that's going to be it. And so we stand back with, our victory pose, fists on our hips. We save the city, yeah! The pieces of the Archdemon have been gathered up and taken out of evil's hands, and now we'll bury this and never have to think about it again. And so while Jameson is carving like a magic sealing circle onto it, we start looking at each other and we go, gosh, it's kind of weird that we had to gather all the pieces of the Archdemon. And our DM looks over and goes, what do you mean? And he goes, well, they were kind of safe while they were apart, They were being used for evil purposes. They were grinding these things into dust and putting the dust into the black taint, and the black taint was going into the drugs, and the drugs were going into the people that would turn them into monsters in this long, convoluted chain of bullshit. But the 5 pieces were all over the city. I mean, isn't putting them all in one place, isn't that a bad idea? Like, if one person breaks the seal and knows what they're doing, isn't it already over? And we start looking at each other and we go, yeah, maybe we should have taken them and, like, scattered them to the 4 winds, or, like, thrown one in the river and left one with Jameson, and then we take the other 3 and, like, one onto a mountain and one into a raging river and one in a cornfield somewhere. Nobody would ever find them again. And the DM goes, yeah, that is weird. You did gather up all the pieces. And then suddenly Dylan, his eyes go wide, and he goes, no! I jump on Jameson before he finishes his circle! And the DM goes, too late! Jameson finishes his magic circle, and the entire vault launches into the sky, where it takes the shape of the Archdemon. And we're like, no! We've been bullshitted! Jameson wanted to summon the Archdemon back to life. And we go, Jameson, you fool! No! And then out of the hole, from the depths of hell itself, comes this giant, like 20-story tower filled with spiraling staircases surrounded by flying hellbats and little creatures coming up out of the ground. And you can see lava spurts going off to one side. And atop the whole thing is this red, horned, winged Archdemon, like just straight up classic Baylor, basically. I don't know if he actually used Baylor stats, but it's like the biggest, like, red, stereotypical, almost a dragon kind of thing at the top of the tower. And we go, Jameson, what have you done? And he goes, I've summoned the Archdemon back to this world to find a cure for the black taint. And he goes, and we go, the black taint is no more. Edmond is dead. And Jameson reaches over and he rips off his shirt. And we can see that all across like half of his chest, all of his veins and arteries are black. And his skin is starting to rot, like from his wrist all the way up like to the middle of his solar plexus. Like the taint is like slowly taking over his body. And we go, what the fuck happened to you? And Jameson goes, I got the black taint. I caught this plague when I was experimenting, one night on the wrong side of town with the wrong sort of women, with the wrong sort of drugs. And we go, you foolish bastard. why haven't you turned into a monster yet? And he goes, you'd be surprised what doctors can do for you if you slide them enough coin and to keep their mouths shut. And it's like, it's basically the Tony Stark gambit. He's got the Black Plague in him, and it's reaching towards his brain and his heart, but it's not there yet. And whatever medicine, whatever magic has been used on him is slowing it down, but it's going to get there eventually. And Jameson goes, I have made an inoculation for the Black Taint. I have, spoken with the wisest of alchemists and the most powerful of clerics, and I will be cured. But I need the Archdemon's blood. I need something from Patient Zero, the source of all this madness and poison and monstrous transformations, and I couldn't get it from just the Archdemon's parts. I needed like actual blood, and once I get it, I'll be able to make my inoculation, and I will be cured. And we just stare at him, completely dumbfounded, like, you selfish bastard. You brought an Archdemon into this city. There is a 20-story tower full of God knows what, surrounded by hellbats, jutting up out of the bowels of hell itself because you were scared to die. And just, I didn't even have, like, we should have seen it coming. The benefactor heel turning at the very end, and we should have thought of it. The scattered pieces of an Archdemon, bring them all into one place and we'll, hide them away. We should have thought of that from the very, very beginning, that didn't make any sense. It should have been go find them and then scatter them to the four winds outside of Edmond's hands, outside of the one city. All 5 pieces are in one city. That's dangerous enough. No, go get them for me and we'll put them in a vault and bury them. And we bought it, hook, line, and sinker. So now we have an Archdemon on a tower in the middle of the fucking city that's sprouting lava in all directions, and Jameson's just standing there like, yes, all according to plan. And we're like, we'll be back. We'll be back for you. And we all turn towards the tower, and we're like, it's 20 stories. And we go, what do we do? And there's hellbats all around it. And Neil the Wizard steps up and goes, I got your back. And he goes, come, join hands with me. And we all do the Power Rangers thing, and we join hands by the wrists. And he goes, group of flight or group or mass teleportation or something like that. He transported us from the ground to the very top of the tower. Just in the blink of an eye. We went up there past all the hellbats, past all the lava. I could kind of see the DM kind of sulking because we didn't go into the tower. He probably set up like a really cool dungeon or something. And I run into that problem sometimes too as a DM of people just skipping over entire waves of content or skipping over dungeons, skipping over entire chapters of the story. We were probably meant to go into the tower, but Neil the Wizard could fly us up there, and we could see the demon on the roof. So it was that or climb, because we were not going to go through 20 floors of bullshit and then reach the top for an ultimate boss fight. We'd get smashed. We'd get killed. And we're like, Jameson, we'll be back. And we teleport up there. And then suddenly, we're on the big platform at the top of the world with the ruinous city to one side and the grand, well cared for city on the other side, like we're sitting in the middle of yin and yang. And, we step up, paladin, sorcerer, wizard, dwarven defender, monk, and Spoony the bard in the back. And, the Archdemon rounds on us like, I am complete, I have come back to the mortal realm, and now I will rain hellfire, for 100 leagues in all directions, and the cracks of hell will grow as wide as the greatest canyons, and all of my demon brethren will come up to join me. The mortal realm will be no more. Ah! Just a big demon rant. The tower itself was basically a wedge between our world and hell. So the longer it stayed there, the wider the space was going to be. So With him acting as the tip of the spear, we had to kill him to get rid of the tower, to get rid of the cracks, to close the portal to hell itself. And already the Hellbats were dashing out over the city, picking up people, tearing people limb from limb. There's guards shooting arrows just blindly into the night sky. Everything's drenched in oranges and reds and blacks, so it becomes instantly just hellish and terrifying. Everything's on fire. It's just like a slowly growing circle of doom and ash as we step up to fight with an Archdemon. Now, given, like I said, everybody standing there is like level 15, so we are around the right level to be fighting an Archdemon, and it is 6-on-1, so for every couple of actions he gets, we get like 12, so it might work out. And you remember, depending on the demon, if we killed him, he might explode and kill us, or if we killed him, our souls might get sucked into hell with him. There's a lot of really nasty demons in D&D, but this one, this one we had no connotation for. And Dylan uses knowledge religion to see if he recognizes, is it this kind of demon, is it that kind of demon? And he rolls really low and it's no good. And he's like, well, we'll have to do this how we solve all of our other problems. And Cassandra looks up at Dylan and goes, what do you mean? We're going to hit it with our swords until it stops moving. That's how we solve a lot of problems. And he's like, roll initiative. And we dash in to do combat with this Archdemon. Of course, he's got wings. He can fly. He can stomp. He's got claws. He's got fire breath. He's got the massive muscles. He's got chains around his arms, like Exodia the Destroyer, that he can whip us with and do 30 goddamn damage in one hit. He's got levels in fighter, so he can hit people 6 times in one turn. That was the trade-off. I think our DM took an Archdemon template and then added levels of fighter to it, so he would get like multiple attacks, so he'd be able to hit everybody all at once and be a proper challenge. So immediately it's like lightning bolt, fireball, divine smite, shield Spoony. They're like, Spoony, you're kind of the odd man out here. I'm like, yeah, you're basically right. I mean, I've got like sonic yell and I've got a crossbow, and that's about it. And, we run to do battle with this thing, and Cassandra almost falls into like an invisible hole in the roof. And we're like, an invisible hole? And they go, yeah, there's probably skylights that you can see from inside the tower that you can't see from outside. So the roof that you're standing on might have pitfalls in it that you can't see. And we're like, shit. We're already in an enclosed space. If we get knocked off the platform, that's it. Neil's the only one that can fly on a whim. And, there's invisible holes we can't see that might drop us down into the tower that's full of God knows what. And Spoony goes, wait, I've got you covered. And for the first time in the whole campaign, Spoony pulls his rapier. And they're like, Spoony, what are you going to do? You going to go up and tickle him with your rapier? He's an Archdemon. And I pull out the pillow of angelic feathers. And I pull that out of my bag, and I slice it open, and I start shaking it and sending feathers in all directions. And I just run around like a wild man, throwing feathers everywhere, and letting the breeze carry them all over the roof. And the DM goes, okay. And I go, as the feathers land on the roof, anywhere that they land that isn't solid, the feathers just go straight through. So now we are fighting on a carpet of angelic feathers, and anywhere that there's not feathers, don't stand there. And they go, wow, that's really brilliant. And so, I prepared the battlefield so that they could fight and not fall to their deaths. I wasn't going to be doing any damage to anybody. I mean, Dylan is still up there. 50 damage, boom, 45 damage, boom, doing all of his smites per day, because again, he built a demon slayer. And they're trading blows back and forth. He's yawning magma across the platform. He's beating his wings and dive bombing people with the giant spiky chains that are around his arms. It's a massive boss fight. And Spoony, you know, after he does his +3 to competence song, is like, I'm standing there strumming my guitar, and then after that, I realize, I'm like, I can't do anything, can I? And I look down at my character sheet while all of my friends are risking their lives. You know, Dylan is up there taking on hellfire. And Cassandra is basically standing between me and the demon, because Dwarven Defender, that's what they're good at, is shielding others while they tank for us. And I was like, oh my god, you know, when it comes down to it, I'm the most worthless guy here. And I look around, and I look down at the Full Health Tavern, you know, 5 blocks away, 20 floors down. It's like, I spent all my time, you know, fucking barmaids and seducing angels and having rock-offs with gods. I didn't build something that could fight demons. I didn't build something that could fight. You know, Spoony is an entertainer. He had, you know, am I going to run up and hit him with my loot? No. It would just break over his head. He would laugh and then snap me in half like a Twix bar. And I'm like, I'm completely helpless. So I go to the edge of the platform and I look down, and it's like now and then a hellbat would go by and I would just like shoot at it with my crossbow. It's like, I'm the most worthless guy in this fight, and this is the final boss battle. And there's lightning, there's smites per day, there's, you know, our monk is doing flurry of blows on his kidneys to make him like lean to one side and not be able to fly properly. He's like going for the trying to make like the exploding head technique work, but his save is too high, and they're just beating on him. But again, he's got levels of fighter, so this Archdemon is just wailing back and forth with these like Ghost Rider chains, basically. Now then, breathing fire, just punches our sorceress right in the face, and she goes skidding across the damn platform like a skipping stone. She almost falls into one of the holes. It's like you catch yourself just barely, and you look down into the tower, you know, through the illusion, you can see all the way down into hell. And he goes, oh god, the tower's hollow. Don't fall. And so she pulls herself back up. She's all covered with grime and ash, and it's like, we're losing. You know, despite, you know, 5 level 15 characters beating on him, you know, Spoony's not helping. It's not something he can do. And even if I ran up and like stabbed him with my rapier, I don't have an attack bonus high enough to pierce, you know, the 30 or 32 or whatever his armor class was. It's an Archdemon. I was like, what do I do? I got nothing. And then I looked down at my character sheet. I was like, okay, do I have holy water? No. Do I have ink I can throw in his eyes? No. Do I have, you know, a tangle bag trap? Do I have anything? Anything at all? All I've got is my loot. And again, I only ever pulled my rapier once, and that was to cut up the pillow. And I put my rapier away, and I glanced down at my feats. And it's like just standard bard stuff. Again, everything that I have is built towards perform. And I was like, God, it's a long way to the top to be a rock star. And then I glanced at the last feat that I had gotten, and it was Arcane Flourish. Arcane Flourish is, I think, in the Player's Handbook 2. I looked it up earlier. It's in the Player's Handbook 2. And at the time, I'm going to go ahead and say, at the time, I had misread it. And the entire end of this game happened because I didn't know how to read Arcane Flourish correctly. So give me that while I'm telling you this. I look at Arcane Flourish, and it says basically that you can burn spells, your spell slots, to add to your performance check. It's like 1 plus the spell's level. So if I rolled a 10 and then burned a level 5 spell, it would automatically be a 16. Now, what you're supposed to be able to do is burn 1 spell. And I read it as saying spells with an S. I didn't know that there was actually a limit to the number of spells that you could use to execute Arcane Flourish. I thought you could just throw in however many you wanted. And I was like, well, this is the last boss battle. This is my last chance to reach into another dimension with music. Let's see what happens. Maybe I can call down some angelic justice again. And I go, when it comes back around to me, it's like, Spoony, are you going to shoot him with your crossbow? And they're kind of like making fun of me at this point. They're like, Spoony, it's your turn. What are you going to do? And I was like, I'm going to start a general bardic performance. And he goes, really? And I go, yeah. He goes, what are you so happy about? And I was like, I took a feat between sessions. And I tell him what Arcane Flourish is. And everybody at the table starts giggling. Because bardic magic only goes up to level 5, but we're a charisma class. So we get a lot of spells, a lot of spell slots. Not as many as wizards, but still quite a few. And I was like, I've got my D20, plus all my magic items, plus all of my spells. And I haven't used any other spells that day. So I've got all my level 5s are going to count as plus 6s. All my level 4s are going to count as plus 5s, and on down. And I think after the roll, after all my magic items, after burning every single spell that I could on a general bardic performance, I topped out at like 137. And it was like, I just like rolled the dice, and it didn't really matter what I rolled. It was like, boom, 137, played the lute until it turned red and exploded. And our DM goes, okay, well, you're going to summon, obviously, you're going to summon an otherworldly creature with this. And I can tell he's thinking like a celestial lion or an angel or something like that. And he's got his little chart behind his DM's shield. And he rolls the percentile. And he stops, and his face falls. And he goes, double zeros. So he rolled 100 on the percentile. And everybody goes, what's that? What's the double zero? And he goes, a god. And he goes, Spoony summoned a god? And the DM goes, yeah. And I go, which one? Which one? And he hands me his laptop that has deities and demigods open in the files on it. And he goes, pick one. And I was like, eee! He's like, with the power of my 137 performance check rock, I summon Bahamut, the god of good dragons. And then I start playing Ride the Dragon to call him from whatever plane of existence he comes from to aid us against this archdemon. So from descending from on high, ripping holes in the dimension, there's a portal to hell below us, and there's a portal to heaven above us. So symbolism. Bahamut, the god of good dragons, descends like he's massive. His wingspan spans the whole damn city. And he's a platinum dragon, like the oldest of the oldest of the old. All good dragons worship Bahamut. And he comes down and sees this tiny tower with these mortals fighting this archdemon and hellbats all around the city. And he flaps his wings like once, and embers come off of his wings, white hot embers, and each of them goes down like cruiser missiles after every single hellbat in the city, just blowing them into ash. And like this gummy stuff comes down over the portal to hell to keep it from ripping our world apart. And he goes, Bahamut is circling the tower, or rather he's hovering about it. He's so large that, one flap of his wings would destroy, or one harder flap of his wings would destroy the city. So he's like watching from each angle, just kind of slowly circumnavigating the tower, in like a clockwise fashion. Is like, the gods have come to aid you, Spoony. I'm like, yes! And he's like, at the same time, however, your loot has been destroyed. Shit! So no more, I could tell the DM was like, no more fucking around for you. Your loot has been destroyed. It can't withstand this level of rock. So while all my friends are fighting this archdemon, I summon Bahamut from God knows where to kill all the hellbats that are killing people down in the city, and he peppers the archdemon with like a tiny little, like from like between his nostrils, because he's a god, he's not going to go full power, from like between his nostrils to just tag the demon for like 100 holy damage for the great song that he heard, and he had to come see it. And he goes, Spoony, Bahamut is leaving. He says, you mortals can handle the rest now. I have saved your city. Cool tune, Spoony. And it was like, yes. I've seen like 5 gods at this, or no, 3 gods at this point, 2 angels, 3 gods with the power of rock. I'm like, yes. So Bahamut returns from whence he came, and I'm feeling more and more like a Final Fantasy summoner. Just more and more outrageous things keep coming to hear my music, and 137 blew my instrument apart, and Dylan's finally like, holy smite, bah! And just rails the demon in half. Like his head goes flying, his arm explodes off to one side, and the demon's like, no, and Dylan picks up his whole arm, and of course we have to go. From whence you came, you shall remain, until you are complete again. And he, with his sword in one hand and the arm in the other hand, he slices off the demon's claw that he had lost before, and grabs it in his fist to separate it from the body, and the demon's, no! And explodes into ash and gore, and he's dead. Well, he's dead again, but he's dead, and we're like, yeah, Dylan did it, yeah! And we go and we check and make sure he's dead, that he's not going to get up in a, like, Terminator 2 style and, like, glop back into himself. And it's like, he didn't explode and kill us, and his blood wasn't made of acid. Are we sure he's dead? And the DM's like, yes, he's dead. I'm like, yes! We did it. Epic final boss battle of destiny. And finally the DM goes, the archdemon has been defeated, and you stand still atop the tower as it slowly descends back into the earth, and the cracks begin to close and heal themselves as all the demons rush back towards the closing portal so they can return to their home plane and not be stranded in the material world. And, just as the last one, the foot of the last one is disappearing over the edge, they seal and disappear as though they never were. And you find yourself standing in a clearing in one of the city's parks. And the grass grows back over it, and, the hole where the vault was buried is gone. And, the other pieces of the archdemon, goodness knows where they are. But now, Dylan the Paladin, you are the guardian of the demon's claw until the end of your days. For if the pieces were ever reunited again, well, you know what would happen. And we're like, yeah, we did it. Fist bumps, high fives, group hug, Power Rangers pose, all that stuff. And finally, our DM, I can tell, is kind of pissed because 137 on a perform check to summon Bahamut in the middle of his last boss fight. I basically broke the game wide open. So he decided to get rid of me. And it's like, how do you do that without looking like a jerk? Well, Bahamut was not the only one who heard the 137 perform of rock during the archdemon battle. Turns out that Aphrodite, the goddess of love, also heard Spoony. And as we're doing there, like doing our high fives and hugging and dancing in circles in celebration, this another like a tan, like red-headed goddess comes down from heaven and goes, Spoony, you have impressed my pantheon with your great music. And Dylan goes, Aphrodite's not in the D&D pantheon. Shut up. I elbow him really hard. Shut up. Because D&D encompasses like 8 pantheons, but Aphrodite's from the Greek pantheon, so or Roman, or maybe both. I don't know. One of those pantheons, not the D&D pantheon. And she goes, won't you come with us? With such extraordinary talents, you could make music for all time. For the gods, for the angels, for mortals too, forever. And I go, I can be a god? Yes, Spoony, the god of music. Spoony, the god of music. And I go, Spoony, the god of music? And she stands next to me, and she puts her arm around my waist and goes, say goodbye to your friends, Spoony. We depart for the heavens. And I kind of looked at it, and I kind of like dropped my bag in case there's more. I'm not going to need it where I'm going. I kind of dropped my bag. And the DM goes, she puts her arm around your waist, and you do the same for her, and she starts to levitate up towards the heavens and goes, Spoony, as you're disappearing into the clouds, you have but a moment to say goodbye to your friends. What do you say as you're ascending into godhood? And I think for a minute, and I look around the table, it's like, oh my God, Spoony became a god. It's like, what do you say to your friends as you're leaving for heaven and you're not dead? And finally, I was like, I've got to pull a line from the movie. What is it? And I finally, as I'm going to heaven, can't you see I'm the man? Let me hear the applause. I am more than a man. I'm a shining golden god. And Spoony's gone. That was the end of the campaign for me. My character got removed for breaking the system, if you will, and summoning Bahamut to one of the boss fights. So, not dead, not annihilated, ascended. So Spoony the Bard became the god of music for the D&D pantheon, taken on to the heavens by Aphrodite, the goddess of love. And you know what he did when he got there, and I don't need to say it, but he definitely moved up in the world. And so once things had calmed down, finally, the remaining 5 party members decide, hey, we have to go get Jameson. This cannot happen again. He cannot track down the 5 pieces of this Archdemon again and then summon this thing again, no matter what the circumstances might be, selfish or not. We've got to go get him. And if that means killing him, if that means taking him to jail, whatever. So they round on Jameson, and they start running towards his place. And they find that Jameson hasn't gone anywhere, but he did get a vial of the demon's blood, because again, there were fireworks going back and forth, so splatters of blood were not hard to come by for a creature that large. And he goes, look, I have made my inoculation, and we watch the black taint kind of retreat from his heart and back down off of his arm until he looks like good as new again. My inoculation was a success. The black taint is gone from my body. Thank you, heroes. And then they bash him over the fucking head. And that was all it took, because Jameson was also not a very powerful wizard or paladin or anything like that. He was just a guy who had contracted the black taint. And so they killed Jameson relatively easily, and they go, well, we've got the inoculation. We should probably spread it around. How do we do that? And we go, well, we're good friends with everybody at the Full Health Tavern. I bet we could sneak it into everybody's beer. We could hit a couple of different places like wells. We could dump some of it into the wells. We know where at least one drug den is. Edmond's empire is going to fall apart, and there's going to be a vacuum of power now that Lieutenant Black and Edmond are gone. And there's probably still drugs out there that have the black taint laced into it that he was trying to spread amongst all those people. So with a big, basically like a liter, I think, it was like a big beaker full of the inoculation, we could make like 20 black taint inoculation potions, just like ladling it out. It's like, we will have to go across the entire city and, put it at the Full Health Tavern, put it in wells, dip it into the river and do all these different things to make sure that people get it, and, track down any remaining people that might have the black taint drugs. Basically start a war on drugs on the other half of on the slummy part of the city and stuff like that, to make sure that nobody else will turn into a demon, and to make sure that, all this nonsense stops, that this racism towards dwarves will no longer run the whole damn city. It's time for us to set out and make the other half of the city a better place. Now that Edmond, this mighty drug lord alchemist, is no more, we can retake the city for good. And we're like, yeah! And our DM says, yes. And as the sun begins to rise on the new day for our heroes, they set off for a well-deserved rest before they get started with their new task. And that is another story for another day. The end. So, the campaign ended there on a great high note. Battle with an archdemon, Spoony ascended to becoming a god. Cassandra got her revenge. Edmond is no more. Lieutenant Black is no more. They're gonna start working, building up the other half of the city. It kind of all got tied into a nice, neat bow. And, with all the Tenacious D references we could possibly stand, seriously, go see that movie. Go see Tenacious D and the Pick of Destiny. But it was a great campaign. And we ended out at like level 15, level 16. And they got a ton of money for killing the Archdemon and saving the city, because, of course, they did. And Spoony joined the Pantheon of Gods as a level 0 god. And yes, there is such a thing as a level 0 god. I think in 3rd edition, level 0 gods are the ones that like ascended to godhood. They used to be mortals. And then level 1 to level 10 is like true gods. They were born that way. So quite the end for Spoony the Bard. He became Spoony the God. So, gosh, that was the campaign of Wicked Master. I hope you guys really enjoyed this, because I know I did. This brought back so many great memories. What happened to the other 4 pieces of the Archdemon? Who knows? But with no master alchemists around, there's nobody to make any more plagues from that thing. And with Dylan guarding the demon's claw, he probably turned it into a necklace or something. The Archdemon will never be summoned again, at least not anytime soon. So, that is where we will stop for today. I hope you enjoyed that campaign, and I hope you enjoyed this D&D story. Keep gaming. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like button for me. If you want to keep up with channel updates, check me out on Facebook. And if you're feeling especially generous, be sure to visit my Patreon. Keep gaming!